Spain in the Middle Ages was ruled by a Visigoth monarchy, but that state was utterly weakened by struggles for the throne, internal dissension, and social and religious conflict. Ordinary people were crushed under religious discrimination, oppression, and intimidation. With the Muslim conquest of Andalusia in 711 AD, a new age dawned for Europe. Within a short space of time, Malaga, Elvira, and Cordoba were also captured with the help of societies unhappy with the Visigoth rule. Thus the region quickly fell under Umayyad rule. Andalusia would remain a Muslim nation for the next 8 centuries and would introduce Islam to Europe. The installation of Islam in the region would mean an end to religious discrimination. Jewish, Christian, and Muslim communities began living in a harmony the like of which was seldom seen before. This exemplary behavior on the part of the Muslims of Andalusia stemmed from their adopting the Quran as their guide. Thus, the justice and compassion required by the moral values of the Quran came to dominate society. Many historians who have studied the impact of Andalusia on Europe are agreed that the state was one of the most important factors in the development of European civilization. The famous historian Blasco Ibáñez describes the civilization built by Muslims in Spain in these words: "Renewal in Spain came not from the north, but from the south as a result of Muslim conquests. This was a movement of civilization more than a conquest. Thanks to this, the wealthiest and brightest civilization in Europe flourished in Spain right through the Middle Ages, from the 8th century to the 15th. At this time, the people in the north were racked by wars of religion, and bloodthirsty hordes, barbarians, acted en masse, while the population of Andalusia exceeded 30 million, and all races and religious groupings acted in harmony within that population. A huge figure for the time, and the public displayed a most vibrant pulse. Andalusia quickly became one of the most respected works of art and ideas of Islamic civilization. Andalusia was the source of the light that broke through the darkness of the Middle Ages and the Inquisition. Great scholars such as Ibn Majah, Muhyiddin ibn Arabi, Al-Qurtubi, and Al-Shatibi flourished here. These Muslim scientists who made huge advances in many fields, such as technology, medicine, astronomy, algebra, and chemistry, proved themselves in the eyes of the whole world in the field of civilization and culture. In later years, the works of these scholars were translated into foreign languages, particularly Latin. Many people at the time were contracting contagious diseases, but owing to medical works by these scholars, Europeans learned modern methods of treating them. The translation of works by Muslim geographers and travelers led to Europeans obtaining geographical knowledge of the Middle East and Far East. Works by these scholars were later used as textbooks in many universities. With its hospitals, libraries, and schools that attracted students from Central Europe, Cordoba was regarded as the most modern city in Europe. A center of learning and culture grew there. Some 600,000 books were held in the Cordoba Library alone. With its extraordinary architecture, well-maintained and bright streets, and magnificent palaces, the city dazzled visitors. European Christians coming to Cordoba were amazed by the great splendor, art, and culture they encountered in the city. Sheila Blair, a Boston University historian, describes the glory that was Cordoba as follows.
Cordoba in the 9th and 10th centuries was one of the biggest and most exciting in Europe. We have descriptions of it by people coming and saying, all these flowers everywhere, this open streets, this wonderful light coming down. Northern cities were dark. Cordoba had running water. People lived in big houses. In contrast, in Paris, people lived in shacks by the side of the river.
During their time in Spain, Muslims established a huge cultural treasury. Over the course of 800 years, 80,000 palaces and mansions, 600 mosques, 80 schools, and 600 commercial centers were built in Cordoba alone. Only a few of these have survived down to the present day. One of the few remains of the glory that was Cordoba is the Catholic Cathedral in the heart of the modern city, or the Mosque of Cordoba as it is also known. This cathedral was turned into a church, having first been a mosque, after the city fell into Christian hands. Various additions were made to the mosque, which had a surface area of 23,000 square meters. It had orange trees in its courtyard, without altering its essential nature, and it later began being used as a cathedral. With a sublime artistic conception in its architecture, this structure still amazes visitors from all over the world, and exhibits the splendor and beauty of Islamic art. One of the most impressive structures in Andalusia is the Alhambra Palace, one of the most amazing examples of Islamic art and aesthetics. The sensitivity that Islam bestows on the human soul can be seen in its every detail. With its gardens adorned by flowers brought from across the world, its pools and stonework is one of the most glorious works of Islamic art. Verses, the names of Allah and the words, "There is no other conqueror than Allah," can be seen in much of the stonework. It was the descriptions of paradise in the Quran that inspired the Muslims of the time to create such amazing works. The depictions of paradise in the Quran describe the highest possible quality, exquisite taste, and a dazzling splendor. Because many verses of the Quran describe high columned floors, lofty staircases, green fields stretching as far as the eye can see, mighty pillars, fields with rivers flowing through them, and gardens and orchards full of produce that bestow a feeling of great well-being and relaxation on the beholder. Verses state that the mansions in paradise are all of that kind. I seek refuge in Allah from the accursed Satan. But those who fear their Lord will have high-ceilinged halls, and more such halls built one above the other, and rivers flowing under them. That is Allah's promise. Allah does not break His promise. Muslims with this conception from the Quran in their hearts created matchless works of art over the course of history, and the countries they ruled became the most select, magnificent, and modern in the whole world. Andalusia has gone down in history as just one of these. The state of Andalusia came to an end in 1492 with the loss of Grenada, the last remaining territory in Muslim hands. But now Europe was to make the acquaintance of Muslims arriving from the Balkans.